This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Disarming Disability. Hi, hello, welcome. I'm Sarah Tuberty.
And I am Nicole Kelly. And welcome to
Disarming Disability.
We are so excited that you've chosen to tune in and spend a little bit of time with us. We, Sarah and I, felt like it was so important to start a dialogue and start a conversation, kind of bridging the gap to experts for people who live with disability, and also to just have honest, real conversations about experiences that we have had in our life and kind of in the scope of our specific disability. Share our stories, share the good stuff, share the funny stuff, share the awkward stuff, share the hard stuff, and really open up the dialogue for people to really connect with the toolbox of knowledge that the experts bring, while also hopefully kind of laughing with us or crying with us or doing whatever it is that we end up doing on this adventure together. Yeah, so hello and welcome.
Absolutely, we're happy that you're here today. So with that, just to share a little bit about who we are, I'm Sarah Tuberty. I am studying to be an occupational therapist. I'm a student right now. I've got about 6 months left until the end of my training.
There.
Oh, it's so exciting. I'm in my clinical placement right here in Chicago, which is really fun. I grew up in California. I also, because I can't just do one thing, I have a second thing where I work as a flight attendant. And I've been doing that. I'm in my 6th year right now. And then I've got a side fun thing I'm working on right now too, is to be an aerial artist. I've been training for the past 2 years, and that's doing things like the silks and the lyra, which has been really fun. So it's just a really kind of neat way to use my body, which is really great.
It's been really fun watching your journey of that too, and you're sharing, because you've been really good to kind of share that journey with people. And yeah, it's clear how much you love it as well. So I think it's a really wonderful part of who you are, Sarah.
Yeah, which is so fun. So those are my things I'm working on. What about you?
Hey, so I'm Nicole Kelly. I mean, I think what my story kind of significantly traces back to is 5 years ago, I was Miss Iowa, which means that I went to Miss America. And when you're handed the title of Miss Iowa, Miss California, Miss whoever you are, whatever state, it actually becomes your full-time job to go out and speak in the community.
Which I didn't realize, because I thought that just was a Miss America component. And even from that, I don't feel that, not that I know a lot about the pageant world, but I would want to say that I didn't know that even Miss America would go around and do different things. So I was very surprised that Miss Iowa did as well.
Listen, there are a lot of, crazy things about the world, but also there's a lot of misconceptions. And that definitely is one of them. It was absolutely 100% my full-time job to travel and to speak. And so I spoke all over the state of Iowa and actually all over the country. That's the first time that I ended up going to all of these amputee camps for the first time. That was the reason, was because I was Miss Iowa. But that was significant, even deeper, because when I went to Miss America, I became world news, and the world news was a disabled girl going to Miss America. Every single news outlet printed it. I was asked to go on the Today Show. I was asked to go on The View. I was asked to go on every single national TV show. And I said no to all of them because I was so wildly insulted about the fact that the whole world was calling me disabled. And it was this crazy back and forth that I had to do both internally and externally about asking the big picture. Why, if I'm saying, am I no different, is the world saying I'm different? And what does that mean? So kind of fast forward. And yes, I realized that I was different. And I'm sure that as we kind of intimately talk and kind of share, you know, you'll get more insights into these parts of my life as well. But I kind of took this journey where I proudly realized that, hell yes, I am different. Mm-hmm. And I'm so proud to be somebody who is part of the disabled community, and what can I do for the disabled community and all these things. So anyway, that's kind of what's landed me here. I also, I travel and I speak at schools and universities across the country, and I have a marketing job that I do as well that takes up a lot of my time. And yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my nutshell version of who I am and why I've made it here to where I'm at. I'm also, I guess I'm a journalism kid. I got my master's in that.
You're also a theater kid.
I'm also a theater kid. Yeah, I do that too. So there's lots of facets of who we are as people, which I think also is the cool part about being able to do a podcast, is we can tie in all of the facets, even if our specific focus here is the disability part of our lives.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's important to bring to light how dynamic people are. And like, there's lots of different things that both of us are really interested in. And also, like, we both have congenital limb differences.
Yes.
So let's say that there.
So congenital versus traumatic amputee. Let's get that out there for you. So congenital means that we both were born with different kinds of hands. So for me, this is Nicole talking, and I am missing my left hand. And in fact, my left arm only goes down to about an inch or two past my elbow. And then it just kind of rounds out, and there's just no hand that exists. And Sarah, can you share about what your arm looks like?
Sarah. I was born with missing fingers on my left hand. And I also had a couple experimental surgeries that were done when I was about a year old. So they took bones from my toes and put them into my fingers to see if they would just extend a little bit of so my hand kind of has little nubs that end right like as knuckles. And then so they put toes there to see if they'd extend it a little bit to try to give me some more functional grasps. So I also have 3 toes that are missing on my feet. They're like a little bit shorter. There's no bones in them. And then I had another surgery when I was 5 that separated a thumb away from my palm so I could be able to pinch onto things. As a result of that, when you move your fingers, you build up a lot of muscle in your forearm. So my whole like left arm, forearm, and then shoulder is a little bit like smaller and kind of shorter than my right one.
Yeah, I love it. You have it. So it's like your wrist and your palm that you have. But then after that, which is fascinating because although we like both are congenital amputees, and yes, amputee is the right word, even though that's strange because we didn't have anything taken away from us, but that's the right term. Even the two of us, the way in which our arms formed looked totally different. Yeah. And that's kind of generally, I think, a beautiful way to talk about what we're going to talk about. You know, we have the same experiences as so many other people in the disability community, but the coloring of who we are is so different. And that's, I think, what makes us all so beautiful. Without being cheesy, I was just cheesy.
No, I love it. I love the cheese. So much cheese. But yeah, absolutely. Which is really wonderful. And then we both, and it's fun too, that like we'll interact with things sort of similarly or differently, and that this also, the things that we're experiencing transcends even limb difference in its own sense, that it's a lot of the things that we've experienced sort of growing up is also what other people in the disability community are also experiencing. Even through articles and research that I've read for my school, I was like, oh my God, yes, like I didn't know how to articulate these things. But like everything in this article is exactly what I'm experiencing, even though the article was written about people who didn't necessarily have like this, we didn't share the same disability, if you will, but it's still like broadly disability.
Yeah, I think so much of what our community has to start getting much more real about is the education of the younger generation coming up, because Sarah, both you and I, we found our disability pride when we were adult people. And both of us lived in a world where we really denied our disability for a very long time, which now, I mean, it's cool in the sense that now we have this fire in our belly to like share with the rest of the world. Oh my gosh, we've like learned this about ourselves, and we've learned about social structures, and we've learned all these things we want to share, but also had I had that information, you know, from the start, what other things would I have done with my time and my energy in my life, right? Yeah. But I think for me it's always this category of us versus them, right? Like the them being disability, and you don't want to be associated with this word, because when you're not, when you haven't taken the time to get to know the community, you assume that the word disability is a really bad word, a very negative word. It means completely unable. It means all of these things that are just have a total negative connotation.
And I think that's like a societal connotation.
Yeah.
So like that's something that is a label that sort of came around through like larger societal roles and sort of what society and that stigma that's generated onto what people think it means to be disabled.
Yeah.
And generally people don't want to be disabled, right? Because that's a word. It's like, oh, it means not able, right? Essentially. And that's not at all what that word means. That's not at all what that community means. And that people are so much more than this sort of like disability and defined, if we were to like list that.
Yeah. I think the most kind of like in this conversation, I think back to the year I was Miss Iowa. I was asked to ride on a big, huge, long bike ride through Iowa. It's the weirdest, most traditional, strange thing that happens in Iowa. Every summer for a solid week, people from all over the world come to ride their bike across the state of Iowa.
Yeah,
it takes a whole week.
Heard of that.
It's called so Ragbri. It's the weirdest thing. So people will ride their bike for like 80 miles a day. And then they will like drink themselves into oblivion, sleep for 3 hours, get up and ride like 80, 100 miles and like rinse and repeat. It's the craziest, weirdest thing that I've ever experienced. Now I only did it for a day.
So a lot. 80 miles is so long.
It's forever. It's so much. I think it was a 50-mile day, but I agreed to do it because it was while I was Miss Iowa, and the Adaptive Iowa sports team asked me to ride a day with them because it would be a good way to show advocacy and show, you know, do a little bit of press for them. And so of course I agreed, but I went into it thinking this is a nice thing for me to do for a community of people who really, people think that I am, but I'm not. That was my mindset going in. And so I remember, I'll always remember, we went in the night before the actual ride happened, and the whole group, the whole Adaptive Iowa team, was meeting at a YMCA to sleep overnight. That was kind of their like ground, their camps for the night where they were camping out. And I'll always remember sitting around in a circle with these amazing cyclists who, many of them were hand cyclists, meaning that, you know, they were in some way, shape, or form paralyzed or used a wheelchair, so their legs didn't work. There were some people there who were blind, so they had an actual person, a lead with them to ride. There were just all of these people who, in my brain, I categorized as the picture of disability, who I didn't want to be like. And I'll always remember sitting in the circle with them and just sharing stories from our life. And every single person that told a story, me thinking in my brain, oh, that's happened to me too. Oh, I've experienced that. Oh, I've been in that exact situation. And kind of coming to the realization that, yet again, I am just a shade of this coloring of this community. And that was a really, really big experience for me. That really was my first step into, okay, this is the disability community, and okay, I am a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so powerful to then, and to recognize that you are experiencing things in your life and that this is a beautiful community to be a part of, and to have that sense of pride instead of that sense of shame, because I definitely felt that shame too when I was growing up, in sort of like that this is a part of my body that I didn't like, that I didn't want to embrace, that I didn't feel that others liked, and that I felt that others were afraid of. But then there's also this big scary word that the sort of like disabled, right, is a word that people don't often, or whatever, maybe I'm generalizing that with that too, but that seems like a very stigmatized word, and to not want to be a part of that community because it sort of means like dis is not, right? And then it's almost like lower in the social totem pole, or like less than, or not able to sit at the table with the rest of society. And so that is really hard to sort of navigate that as a young person. And I think that isn't what's true. And I feel like that's what's really beautiful and important with this podcast. So we're just going to try to deconstruct that conversation to truly show what is disability and what are the true abilities that people with this quote unquote disability can in fact do. Because people are very dynamic, and we do have lots of meaningful things in our lives that we care about, and there's meaningful things that we do, and there's lots of different ways to do things, which I think is really beautiful. And that's what I'm learning in my occupational therapy school too, is that so much of what we do is adapting activities. So it's like, how can we maximize the independence that someone is able to do? And even being able to direct care is something that we could say a person is independent in being able to do activities X, Y, and Z, even though looking at them, sort of with larger society, it's like, oh, well, maybe their bodies can't do these things because they're limited in mobility, whatever, but they're still able to direct all this care. So this woman in class, we talked a lot about, like, she was able to tell someone else how to make cookies, even though she found that picking up all the utensils and making the cookies was difficult for her. So she, told the woman the recipe and told her the steps, what to do. So it's just kind of cool that she is independent in doing that in a way. So it's just like a different way of thinking about things. And that like, things can be done different ways. It doesn't have to be that one way.
Yeah.
And there's so many other ways that we can do any type of these activities. So I think that that's what's helpful here too, to really broaden and understand what this community is about, and then seek that pride that like, yes, I am a part of this community.
Totally 100% there with you on everything you just said. I'm wondering, Sarah, what was that story I just told wasn't my first taste of necessarily like pride. Do you have a time when you first kind of realized maybe this thing that had felt shameful that other people had been scared of? Was there a time when that kind of flipped and you started to realize, oh wait, this is something I can be proud of?
Yeah, absolutely. I have two stories on that. One of them will sort of lead into how we met. Nikki and I met back in 2014, and I had been a part of this really awesome summer camp in California that is called Camp Winning Hands. And it's for children with limb differences to come and spend a week with other kids with limb differences and be able to do all of the activities that you could do at camp. So we have like a rock wall, we have horseback riding, we have pool games, and everything is very intricately programmed to help just be camp, but then also offers this like really beautiful, authentic opportunity for kids to be able to connect and to see like, oh, they're carrying their cup the same way that I am. And like, oh, we do these things too. So it's really fun.
An amazing time. It's great.
Yeah. So, and that's true. I mean, with your Miss Iowa, that's how our director had found you and then invited you to come to camp. So I'm so thankful that you said yes.
I'll always remember, it was the week after I was done being Miss Iowa that I flew out to you guys because I remembered that it felt funny that I wasn't wearing a crown at camp, which how ridiculous, how ridiculous is that for me to say? Like, it felt strange that I didn't have a crown on my head, but it's so weird because the crown really was a part of my, that was just like a fireman wears his firefighter outfit, a policeman wears his outfit. It really had been for a whole year, every day, my uniform that I wore. So I remember always being at that camp, and it was my first adjustment to like, oh, you can still do this work without the outfit that you're used to wearing. And that was a good thing for me. That was great. Anyway, sorry, silly side note. Go ahead.
Absolutely. No, and I'm so happy and thankful that you can. And I think we are watching or sitting down archery. I think our kids that we were with, we're both counselors at it. So they were playing archery or something. We both sat down on a bench and just started talking and sort of built this really beautiful friendship as a result of that. So an area where I started to feel that pride from camp was that I had parents asking me questions about like, how do they navigate these things with their kids? And then I had like, this girl asked me like, how do you feel beautiful when your hand looks like this? And really like, that was hard because I couldn't tell this parent or this teenager, that I really don't feel beautiful. And then I truthfully had like very terrible self-esteem and very terrible self-image because of all these messages I'd received and what I thought and believed with myself. I didn't think very highly of myself.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be like, oh, mom, like I actually feel like crap all the time and I don't feel I'm worth anything and I'm very anxious and I don't make friends and I like have all of these social anxieties. So I had to start telling them, like, oh, it's fine. And you are still beautiful and all these things that I believed. And I'm sorry, that I knew. Let me clarify that. These are all things that I knew, but I didn't believe.
Sure.
So I had to start believing them. And then, Nikki, you, when we met at that camp, you had asked if I had heard about the Lucky Femme Project.
Yep.
And I was like, no, tell me this, because I am just learning how to be a part of this whole camp world too. And then, so the Lucky Femme Project, do you want to share what it is?
Yeah. So the Lucky Femme Project it's an organization started by a mom, Molly, who went looking for resources and answers when her daughter was born with a limb difference and couldn't find them. So she was like, fine, guess what? I'm going to be the person to actually build this community and figure it out. That's exactly what she's done. So really, it's a community to connect parents and family members and kids who specifically live with a limb difference. And it's called the Lucky Fin Project because Finding Nemo was born with one fin smaller than the other. And so therefore he is kind of forever our mascot of who we identify as and who we are as people, which I'm never going to be mad about.
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, it's a great community of people who are connecting online.
Yeah. And so when Nikki had said that, I went back after camp and I Googled them and I found that they have different merchandise. And so I bought a sweatshirt and I bought one of the bracelets. And then there's a sticker that says 10 fingers are overrated. And I loved it so much. And I thought it was so funny. And I was like, okay, I need that. And then when it came in the mail, I had a really hard time putting that on my car. And I knew that I wanted it to go on my car, but it took me like probably maybe 2 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, because I didn't want to like label myself as being someone with a limb difference. And I felt that this is a conversation I never really brought up with my friends because I didn't want to be like that person that has like their thing that they're always talking about. So I never really talked about it to my close friends. Things would come up sure here and there, but I never really talked about how proud I was because I never really felt the pride of my limb difference. At that moment in my life, I was like, no. Younger. So it took me a long time to put that on my car. And then just being really anxious, like, well, what are people going to think if they see that this is on my car? But it was so funny. So I finally put it up there and it was very uncomfortable. And I had a lot of anxiety around it because I was still working on deconstructing that stigma within myself.
Sure.
So once I had to let that go, and then once I started to say, like, I am worth all of these things. Like, I am worth being here. I'm worthy to be in relationships where I'm an equal partner. I'm worthy of being loved. Like, I'm worthy on being accepted. I'm worthy to sit at the table sort of with everybody else. And I shouldn't be this like discarded member of society, which is what a role I had taken on and let myself live in for a little while. So I'm pulling myself out of that. So I think that was a really moment of pride where that was something that then was publicly shared.
Very cool. That's
very
super cool. Yeah. Like literally like this sticker is on my car. So you can know nothing about me. I look as average and as able-bodied being inside my car. You would never know, but I am publicly like announcing now that I do have something that's different.
Right. And it's been on my car for 5 years. It's still there now.
I love it. That's wonderful. That's so cool. I think back and I mean, always I feel like the conversation, particularly about like being a middle school girl, no matter who you are in middle school as a girl, it sucks. You know, like there's no way to make that a great experience. But I think for me, middle school was the first time that I really started to notice that people would treat me in a different way. I'll always remember there in 7th grade, I was on the basketball team. I was horrible at basketball. I was so bad, but I was playing in a game and we were at a town next door and the ref blew his whistle for a timeout because my shoe was untied.
Oh no.
And so I bent down to tie my shoe very quickly. And the girls from the other team, the town next door, were whispering to each other. And so, you know that they were whispering about me tying my shoe, but also being a grown-up person now and having actual like life perspective, they probably were whispering about how cool it was that I could tie my shoe very quickly because, that's a basic skill that I learned to do differently when I was in kindergarten, right? However, I remember being so upset and looking up from tying my shoe, and I somehow verbalized something. I think maybe I just said like, excuse me, or, you know, something sassy like that. But that was the first event that happened in my life where I realized that my trajectory and the way that people addressed me in everyday life was going to be different. And that was something that I had no idea how to reconcile for a very, very, very long time. And I think I just got used to either being defensive about it or hiding it and not talking about it. Those were the two options. Like, you're either mad about it or you're hiding it and not talking about it, because it's so hard to start that conversation. It's so hard to like put that sticker on your car and say, cool, let's talk about it, because you don't know how to talk about it.
Right? We don't.
Yeah.
We don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And like, how are you supposed to reconcile that at whatever, middle school's 12?
Yeah,
12?
like 12. Yeah.
Or even before that, like 8. And I think that that's a lot of pressure on that. Like, a lot of pressure on young people when they're trying to go through all of this other stuff anyway. Like, they're trying to figure out like what's cool to wear in your hair now. I mean, that changes every time. And just trying to feel confident and independent in themselves.
Yes.
And still like navigating like, how are we adults? How are we different than our parents? How can we, you know, build and be accepted, right?
Yep.
Like, we all just want to be accepted.
Right.
So figuring that out with this like added lens of having a very physical disability like that too. And even for disabilities that aren't so apparent or seen, that's really hard too, that there's this extra thing that you're working with that can't be tangible by other people necessarily, that could get really hard too, that you're trying to like work through all this and not being able to find that language that articulates what this disability is, can articulate that experience, explain it if needed, if you want to explain it, you don't have to, but then also being able to say like, and I'm still equal and I'm still worthy to be here and I still have a seat at this table too.
Right. It's so many layers that we are that's what we're going to deconstruct as we get going. No, what I was going to say is, I feel like growing up, a lot of people, the way that they wanted to talk about it with me was making it an inanimate object, if I can talk. So lots of people named my arm or gave it nicknames.
That's
and
weird.
It actually, they called it a he. It is a he. Did anybody do that with you?
No. So people did make fun of it in a way. Like, they said I was the girl with the Barbie hand, which I didn't quite get, because Barbie has all of her fingers, but I think that they meant that it was smaller. I don't know. But I was labeled as the girl with the Barbie hand in my like 3rd, 4th grade class.
Interesting.
But no one ever named it.
Nobody ever named it. What?
I didn't let them name it. I don't like naming things. None of my plants have names. Like, I don't.
Maybe
my car doesn't have a name.
Maybe I played into that. I don't know. Maybe as a child I was like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. I don't remember, but yeah, like my siblings called it Wormy, and it was a he for a long time.
Okay. Are your siblings older?
They are older. They are right. But also that didn't last for a long time. And also siblings, of course, live in your space and understand you as a person. So that's a different experience altogether, right? That's not people I'm randomly meeting. In high school, I got called penis arm.
What?
I really did. Yeah. And they thought it was hilarious. And I had no idea what to do. It was so upsetting. So I just like laughed with them.
That's so uncomfortable.
It was so awful. I didn't see a penis until I was like 22 years old. Okay. Like, so they're saying this to this like 14, 15-year-old girl, and I'm still like 7 or 8 years out from even seeing one. So like,
that's awful.
Isn't it? I know. That's okay. That's all right though. That's why we're here. Is because
think your arm looks like a penis.
It really doesn't. It actually doesn't, you guys. Like, for those of you who are listening, it just happens to be like rounded at the end, but that it doesn't at all look like a penis. Now that I've seen one, by the way.
I can check.
I can check.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, no, and I think the kind of cool thing is Nikki's arm looks like an arm and my hand looks like a hand. Yeah. And these are options. And this is broadening the spectrum of human variation. Like, that these are things that exist. So to not be surprised that like this is an option for what an arm and what a hand looks like, because this is my hand and this is her arm. I think is an important thing to share too.
Will you share why we chose the name Disarming Disability?
Yeah. So we went back and forth on lots of different things, but we found that this name was really appropriate for us because we both are missing parts of our arm. So it's we liked that the disarm happens, but also larger when we were looking up the definition of disarm, it really means to like take away the like power and strength and like weapons.
Yeah, almost like combating.
Yeah.
Like, that was the word that stuck for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, combating. Yeah. And taking away the weapons from like another group. So like you can disarm whatever, something that's coming at you. I didn't describe that very well.
No, you totally did. It 100% made sense to me. So
right. But the cool thing that we liked about disarm in that definition is that there's a component that says through charm.
Yeah.
So like there's, like someone has a disarming smile. So if someone's really angry and is going to come at them really aggressively, then someone has this disarming smile and can use this charm to take away that aggression and bring the conversation down to like, how can we talk about this on an even playing field? And that's what Nikki and I really felt, that we wanted to be able to have this conversation where we can really disarm, if you will, through charm, taking away the aggression that can happen with the oppression of the stigmatized group of being someone with disability, because there's like a lot of anger and a lot of stigma and a lot of insecurities and a lot of discomfort that come with these like social norms that we're experiencing that are very much against people with disabilities. So we wanted to take apart and dismantle and disarm, if you will, that's a stigma, but do it in this like very welcoming, very loving, very like authentic way, because we felt that that's who Nikki and I are, and that's sort of what our benefits are, that we can be able to have this conversation in that particular manner. And then we liked the disability aspect in that we kind of were very intentional about this, because we know that there's a very strong disability community, and we didn't want to like disable that community. That's not what we were trying to say, or disarm, if you will, that community. We really want to disarm like the definition of disability and really sort of deconstruct what that looks like. And I think that that is very separate than what the community itself is. Yes. So we want to make distinction.
Yes, distinction between the two.
Distinction between the two. So we are really deconstructing the social stigma of the definition of disability, and it can be defined in several different ways. But one of the ones is that sort of like disadvantage that disability produces, that it's like not able to do something, that's missing some component of their body, whether it's like a physical or a mental or a cognitive aspect, that's not allowing that person to engage in their daily activities. And we believe that there's a lot of social components that are constructed that is preventing the access for someone with these disabilities to be able to actually do their meaningful occupations, if they will, in their day. So we really wanted to sort of deconstruct that social aspect. And that is very different than the community of people with disabilities, because that's very proud and that's very going. And we're not taking away that word from that community. We're simply going back and really want to disarm and deconstruct the word disability, what that means as far as a social construct.
Yeah, yes, everything that you just said, that was so eloquently said. And I think I'm going to slide in here at this point to give the little. You'll hear Sarah and I talk about a lot throughout the podcast. It's very important to us that we are acknowledging who we are in the story, and the fact that, what we bring is our expertise, but also our expertise is a very specific piece of the puzzle. So we just want to always be acknowledging the fact that we are both 20-something-year-olds who are white women and who live with a specific disability that is a limb difference. We understand that that is the piece of the puzzle that we come from, and that, of course, makes our experience different from others. But we are hoping that just through the ability to share the things that we've been through and just to share our experiences, that vulnerability will connect with those who have other differences. And of course, then the other piece of that's been so important to us for this podcast is bringing in the experts who can speak to the community as a whole and who can speak from other areas that we are not experts in. We're not claiming to be experts.
No, not at all.
We're not.
We're experts on our own experiences.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, the last thing I feel like we should chat about is just why here and why now, and why is this important here and now? And we've spent some time talking about this. And I guess to start, I would say is that both Sarah and I have over the past few years of our life, a big chunk of our life has been really focused on studying and meeting people and figuring out what this word and this community that is disability, what that means. We have spent our extra time doing that, researching and reading and meeting people and just like really investing in trying to figure out what our place is in the world. And so I think a big part of that is we both are in a place where we now have made cool friends that we want to bring to you to chat with you. We have experiences that we've kind of talked through and lived through and are ready to share. And then go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have also like thought very deeply about a lot of these things in different aspects. So we've sort of mulled them over in our heads, and we've like, how does this relate to our life? And what is it that we're experiencing? And how does this relate to larger communities too? But also something within our studies that we found that there's so much work that so many people have done within the past, like, 100 years or so, people don't have access to it.
Yes.
So like, these are theories that are available. These are movements that have happened.
Yes.
These are policies that have been written, and like very public things that have come up, but we're not learning about them in our 6th grade classes. So there's so many things that we've learned and experienced through our reading that like, articles that were written in 1963, like this has been around for a while, but we just didn't know it. And these things would have been so helpful for us to have known earlier in our life. And like, why are we not hearing about them? Why are we not talking about these things? Why are they not included in our classrooms? And again, there's lots of stuff. I know. I'm a little excited right now, but like, these are things that should be on a national level. And I really feel that we're like in a very big, like social movement that's happening, and has been like, so many people have been working so hard to make this a national level. And I really feel that it's happening now. We're in the brink of it being like a social movement that's happening.
I agree. Yeah.
So I think it makes sense to like just be another voice. Like, let's get more podcasts out there. Let's get more images of people with disabilities in social media. Let's get more images of people with disabilities in movies and commercials, and all of these things were becoming more seen.
We're like learning actually how to organize, which is silly because there's so many amazing people and groups who have done the studies in access living. And, I acknowledge the fact that like this ball has been rolling for some time.
Oh my gosh.
But I really think that it's actually gaining the momentum that it's deserved for a long time. I really think that people are starting to turn their heads and pay attention.
And I think that like our society is now willing to listen.
Yes.
I think that these are things that have been said and have been shouted and have been like very publicly seen for a while. And I think that we just weren't ready as a larger society. I think that there's other things we're working on. And now I really feel that people like on an everyday level are like more willing and ready to have this conversation. So we're here to be another voice to help amplify everything that's been done.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like, just like what you said, that struck me especially in like preparing for this podcast, we're passing articles back and forth to read, and we're trying to be as best prepared as we can be when we're bringing these experts to you. We want to at least like have appropriate questions ready to ask. And so you had like passed an article over to me that I was reading, and I'm 28 years old. And this is something in reading the article, what I was reading, I had experienced my entire life, but didn't understand the model that it was explaining. I didn't understand the words to verbalize what was happening. It was so enlightening in such a real way. And part of it makes me mad that I'm 28 years old and nobody's given me this information before.
Right. And this was written in 1963.
And this is written in 1963. Like the information exists. It's just like
it's been researched and it's been studied and it's like proven, if you will, like there are theoretical models and there are theories.
So we just like, that's a huge hope, is that we can help be the filter of that information and make it easily accessible to you and connect you to people who really have done amazing foundational work in the disability community, and hopefully
help fire you up
and enlighten you, get you excited.
So that's what we're here for. And that's what we hope. And that's sort of like the big goal of this podcast, is really to help deconstruct the social stigma around disability And whether you have a disability yourself, if you identify in that community, or you have someone that you love that's a part of this community, or maybe you work with people that are in this community, or maybe you don't know anybody as intimately that's a part of this community, like this really is for you and for all of us. And it's also not limited to people with a specific disability. I know Nikki and I sort of talk about from this, our perspectives will sort of come from our life experiences that we've had with our limb differences, but that doesn't mean that it's only about people with limb differences. Like we really want to be mindful and inclusive of anyone who identifies with disability, whether that's like physical or whether it's mental or if it's cognitive, any of those different types of things, that like you are here and you are seen and you're included and you belong.
Yes.
Like this is a community here for you. And I think it's also important to just help really see who people are, the dynamic being of who those people are, and that they are more than their disability, even if it is something that they're really proud of and that it's a large part of their identity. They are still like mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and lovers and siblings and all that, and aerialists and flight attendants. You know.
Yep.
So it is to help bring to light that too, and to, you know, like help broaden the perspective of what it means to be someone with a disability.
Yeah, so if you like what you're hearing, please stick with us. We plan to run our season by picking specific what we're calling chapters. So we'll have a couple of episodes specifically coming up for you on just breaking down generally what is disability, what is the history, just kind of overview basics for you. And after we go through a chapter, which will be 3 episodes, then it'll be Sarah and I deconstructing ourselves, chatting about what we learned, how that has affected our lives, just kind of an overview. And then we'll move into another chapter and do 3 episodes with 3 experts, then deconstruct after that, and so on and so forth.
And with each episode, we'll also have a coloring page featured just to help positively show images of people with disabilities doing everyday activities, just because we need more of those images. And, you know, we need our kids to see these images so they grow up with this being their norm.
And also, who doesn't love coloring?
Right. Right. So whatever you're doing, if you're like washing the dishes or you're commuting to work or going to school or whatever, like if you have a moment and you find this relaxing, then sure, you have a coloring page so you can color along with us.
And we also will be providing a follow-up packet for every episode, just thoughtful questions. If you are somebody who likes to write things out or needs to write things out in order to process, it'll be up there. And it's kind of just simply guiding prompts for you to be more thoughtful, if that is a way to join the conversation that you enjoy. So you can find those on disarmingdisability.com. We will be coming at you next week.
Yeah, so welcome. Have a fabulous day. Thank you for being here with us.
And we'll see you in 7 days.
Yeah, we'll take on the world. We got it.
We got this, guys. We're going to disarm the crap out of this.
Yes, we are.
A curse word.
Oh, we are. We're going to disarm the crap out of this. I know
we're going to disarm the crap out of this.
Yeah, right? We got it.
Okay, bye.
Bye. We want to give special thanks to our network, Public House Media. For our intro beats, Jason Barnes at Cybernetics. For our logo art, Patrice. You can find him at normalpersons.com. And Matt Meldrum and Ryan Louie, our 2-handed technical team. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or publichousemedia.org. Follow us on Twitter at DisarmDisable. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Disarming Disability. And check out our website, disarmingdisability.com. See you next week. Bye.